What's going on, guys? This is just a super fast little impromptu video I'm gonna do just about mastering Marty's new track from his EP, When I Met You. It's a super cool EP. Definitely go check it out. I mastered the whole record, and Marty has some sick guest solos and stuff on there. So for sure, give it a listen. Link will be down below. Cool. So the mix that Marty sent me sounded really good. He did it all himself in his room in terms of all the playing, the programming, and all that good stuff. So I knew it was going to be solid work all around going into this. So the first thing I did when he sent me the files was I checked it out and just made sure there's no pops and clicks and stuff at the beginning and the end. Awesome. Nothing there. Checked out the end of the track too. Just did a quick little fade on there just to get it out a little faster. First thing I always do is just listen all the way through to the track, see what's going on, see how I'm feeling overall, maybe compare it to some references and stuff like that. It's really easy when you start a mastering session just to be tempted to dive right in and start tweaking stuff, but definitely give the track a good listen before you really dig in. So I guess we'll kind of go in order of my thought process here. I can turn off some of this stuff for now. So the first thing I like to usually do is use Gullfoss. It's basically a sound goodizer plugin, but it really works. It really sounds phenomenal. This particular version is the mastering version, meaning everything is oversampled and converted to 32-bit float for just maximum precision. Sounds really, really good. It's not really doing all that much. I'll give you an A/B real quick. Let's check out this section here. So here's before. And then I'll enable it real quick. So if you notice, it just gives this track a nice lift, a little bit more high end. I have the brighten control on around 13%. The tame and the recover are both set pretty low, so it's not doing a ton of work. I'm also using this boost function here, which has to do with the low end. I was just taming it a tiny bit. It was getting a little bit boomy with that kick drum, and especially in this section. So moving right along, the next thing I pulled up was everyone's favorite Pro Q. This is doing some more of that surgical work and just kind of clean up before I get into the real tone shaping. Overall, this track had a lot of low end. Naturally, for the genre, there's a lot of synths going on. Obviously, the bass and the kick drum. I put in a mid-side high-pass filter. This mid-channel was relatively high up, around 30 hertz. There's a lot of useless information going on down there, if you can see here. It really just cleans up that super low inaudible stuff. And then the side channel too. He's got lots of guitars going on, very, very wide stuff. And the stereo image was getting a little muddy out in the far side. I'll solo that for you. Yeah, you can kind of hear it's not doing a ton of work, but still it's just tightening up those rhythm guitars. And then some general EQ I was doing here, a few resonances to clean up. This nice generous high boost, uh, clearly just a product of the mix environment and whatever monitoring system was used for the mixing. Yeah, it just gives the track a nice little lift again. Next thing I pulled up was the old Soothe just to clear some of those resonances. I have the attack on very, very slow, so it's not going to be grabbing transients or anything like that. It's just going to be doing some very gentle notching. As you can see, I'm not really doing more than, I think, probably 4 or 5 dB. I have the mix down a little bit just to limit the amount of reduction, but you notice it really in the low end, in the kick drum transients and that kind of thing, and especially up in those kind of soaring guitar parts. Even some of the top end of the cymbals when they're doing long, crash ride stuff. Great. Up next, we've got our SPL Vitalizer. This is a cool little plugin. Once again, I'm pretty much using it for the low end. There's this bass knob, which is kind of a sort of a transient shaper type thing. And then this is a low end compression function. And then the only other thing I'm doing with this is just adding a tiny bit of stereo expansion, just brings up the side channels a little bit. All right, then we've got our first real character plugin. This is the Shadow Hills from Plugin Alliance. It's the older version, it's not the Class A, but it's the same code that runs on the UAD one, and this is the one they gave away for free a while back. It's a great little plugin. You can do a lot of different stuff with it. I find it works better on much more gentle settings rather than super aggressive. It gets a little pumpy if you start pushing it too hard, but a great feature is this right here. This is the output transformer selection. It has three different options that have different characters. I'll give you a little A/B real quick. Yeah, so I'm mostly making use of the first stage here, the optical stage. The discrete kicks in once in a while on the super crazy transients, but overall, it just gives it a little tiny bit more glue. Marty had already had a pretty good amount of compression on his master bus, so I didn't want to go too crazy here. Next up is kind of the secret sauce. This is some very, very aggressive parallel compression with the Native Instruments slash soft tube SSL. You can see I'm getting quite a lot of gain reduction here. Give it a quick A/B. And as the name says, it just makes it sound super, super solid. I have the output very low, but even just that tiny bit, it really accentuates the transients and then brings up the tail of all that stuff that's going on, even in the really fast sections. But overall, keep the mix low if you're gonna do something this aggressive. It can get super out of control really quick if you don't. All right, then we have another cool little plugin. This is the Waves multi-band compressor. This one has linear phase crossovers, which makes it nice and transparent. Here, I'll give you a quick A/B on that. Once again, super, super subtle. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only doing a dB maximum throughout the entire course of the track. It's mostly just controlling those very, very spiky snare drums. You can see in the high mids there. Yeah, just grabbing those snares to prepare it for the limiter so they don't get totally squashed. Next, we have this goofy looking thing, the ship's parallel particles. It's a cool, kind of all in one, turn the knob until it feels good type plugin. This one's probably putting in the most work in terms of color out of anything in this whole chain. Yeah, it just makes it sound pretty good. It's a little bit reminiscent of OTT with the settings I have on it right now, just obviously much, much more subtle. But if you're familiar with that plugin, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the last thing in our chain is just a little bit more cleanup of the low end. Between the SPL and the Sheps, it has a tendency to get this kind of generated subharmonic low end feel to it that is just kind of gross, especially in a rock track. It feels really good, but only to a certain point. So I have this just going on to tame it. And then just a little mid-side EQ. I think the cymbals were getting a little harsh, so I just put this dynamic band up there to tame those in the event that they get too crazy. And then this little dip in the midsection, I think it was just to kind of make the guitars seem a tiny bit wider, just to give a little more room in there. And last up, we've got our maximizer. It's a great sounding limiter, gets it nice and loud without totally destroying everything. Not that it's doing a lot. I think it's probably only doing 2 or 3 dB max at the loudest point of the song. Lets the track breathe. As you can see, this is the printed waveform down here. It's still relatively dynamic in terms of a modern rock track. There's a lot of space. If we wanted, we could probably push it a little farther, but I think this track definitely needs to breathe, especially to give some contrast between sections and stuff. And here I can gain match this real quick. We can check out an A/B. Let me just pull down the output a little bit. Yeah, you can really feel it interacting with that kick and that snare, giving it a nice solid punch and a nice snappy attack. And the last thing I'd say in terms of utility stuff, we've got tonal balance control. It's whatever Isotope's idea of a rock song is. I'm sure they have plenty of evidence to support it, but still something to keep an eye on just in case. And we've got Insight. This is just going to give us our nice loudness readout for the whole track. So yeah, we're hitting around -9, -10, which is decently loud, but not totally destroyed. And yeah, my method of kind of printing stuff involves, having the track here, and then I'll put a bunch of plugins on there, and then on this track here, I'll have the 2 mix, which will just be for the limiter, and then that's all routed to this print track. So that way, when I'm finished, I can just press record. And I can listen to the entire track as it's bouncing. That way I'm gonna catch anything weird that's going on, or I'll catch anything I don't like, and I can make adjustments as we go. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna, be answering questions and stuff in the comments if you have any. Feel free to drop them below. It's kind of my first time doing any kind of video like this or whatever, so let me know if you want more or whatever. Let me make something crazy for a clickbait thumbnail real quick. Should I leave this in? I'm gonna leave this in. Sick.